Today we're going to be doing some small batch canning with blackberries and peaches, and we're going to be making a delicious jam. So join me, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I got some beautiful new jam jars. These are actually ball canning jars that I got as a gift from a friend. So I'm going to be using those to make my jam today. I have some nice organic blackberries and it says to crush them, so I'm just going to throw them in my blender real quick. So when I'm making jam, it's a little bit different than when I'm canning. I want the ripest fruit, even sometimes if it's a little mushy, as long as it's still really ripe and fresh. So I picked some peaches. These are my mini pixie peaches. And I'm not sure I'm going to use all these, but whatever I don't eat, I'm going to have for breakfast. So I'm just, getting all the skins off of it, and I won't show you that part of it, but I put them in boiling water, then I put them in an ice bath so they stop cooking with a little bit of lemon juice. And then when I get all of the peaches cut up, I'm going to measure 2 cups of mixed fruit. Now, it's really important when you're mixing any kind of fruit that you make sure that it has the same amount of quantity that you need, because different kind of fruits are going to have different kinds of quantities for canning. So blackberries and peaches have a very similar quantity amount and a very similar sugar amount. So since I'm making a very small batch, I'm cutting this recipe in half, so I'm only going to be using 2 cups of the fruit. So be sure to look at the label on your either if you're using liquid or powdered pectin. Make sure that you read those really carefully and that you just make sure that you are using similar products, similar amounts, the exact amount of sugar and pectin for the amount of fruit that you have, and you'll have great success. Now the recipe doesn't call for you to take off the peelings, but in most of the things that I make, I usually do take the peelings off. So I'm going to just slip these skins off really quickly, and then I'm going to put them in this cold lemon water, and then I'm going to chop them up for my jam. You see they're very ripe. The skins are coming off very easily. This is how they should come off when you're making like a jam or a jelly. Now I've got I've got rocks under all of my trees, so when they fall, sometimes I knock one off when I'm picking another one, and what happens is that they get little nicks and things in the rocks, and I just deal with it, just cut the little area off. Sometimes they get a little bruise on them or something like that. These little pixies, when I say a miniature tree, this is actually a miniature tree. It's not a miniature peach. And it's very low to the ground, so these don't usually get pummeled as much as some of my other fruit. Some of them, it's just, I feel kind of bad, but that's the way it goes. Okay, so all we're going to do is take our fruit, and you have to kind of score it. These are cling-free peaches, so the stones come out really easy, not difficult. And I'm going to do a couple of these at a time just because I want to make sure that I'm making the least amount of mess as possible. These are very messy to work with. You have a lot of juice that comes from the peach, a lot of natural sugar, so you're constantly working against ants and things like that, and I do not want them in my kitchen. So this is how we do it here. So I'm just going to chop these into little pieces. See how easy when they're ripe like this, they chop up really easy. And there's a little area where it probably fell on the ground. Chop them up like so. So we just want this to equal 2 cups of fruit. So I'm just going to put all these peaches in here. And it looks like I probably am going to need these additional peaches. We'll put put this one in. I think this one was really ripe. Okay, to this recipe, we're going to add, now this is a half recipe, so you follow the directions on the box. But for me, I'm going to be putting 3½ cups of sugar into my pan. And I'm going to add my 2 cups of the same similar kind of fruit. So I'm going to add my crushed blackberries and my peaches. Again, these are mini pixie peaches. I'm going to get all this yummy stuff out of here. I absolutely love blackberries. They're probably one of my favorite berries. They are so good. So I'm going to put that in there, and I'm just going to start cooking that on a medium heat. And if it starts to foam, I'm going to add about a tablespoon of butter. Okay, I've got a full rolling boil here. I'm going to turn it down a little just because it's going so crazy, and that's a boil that can't be stirred down. So I've set my timer for 1 minute, and I'm actually going to add my tablespoon of butter now. So I'm not going to skim this foam off at this point. I'm going to wait until after I add the pectin. So all I'm going to do at this point is just give it a stir. There's our 1 minute timer. So we're going to, at this point, add our pectin. So I've kind of squeezed it in half, and all I'm going to do is put half of it in there, and then I'm going to put the other half in my freezer, and it will freeze just fine. So if you don't feel comfortable mixing half recipes or what have you, don't do it. There's no reason to. But for me, I've been canning for many, many years. I'm almost 64, and I have just found that, you know, as long as you follow the exact measurements, it works out fine for me. So I'm going to just continue to give this a stir. So I'm going to time this. We're at a full rolling boil for 1 minute. And this will be ready in 1 minute. It's going to come out amazing. It's going to look kind of liquidy when you start this process, but when it's all done setting up as jam, it's going to be really wonderful. Okay, our timers went off. We're going to turn that off. We're going to turn our heat off, and then I'm going to show you how this is so easy to skim this foam off. All I'm going to do is get a little spoon here, and I'm just going to skim it off right onto this plate. Now I've got some fruit, so I just want to make sure that I'm not grabbing the fruit when I grab the foam. So I just kind of push the fruit down. You know, if this is a little bit harder for you, you may consider, you know, taking your fruit and running it through a blender, or, you know, kind of like I did with the blackberries. But I like the little pieces of fruit in mine, so I just take an extra minute and just try to be really, you know, careful. And if I don't get every drop of foam, I'm okay with that. Okay, we're just going to take our jam jars out of the steaming hot water. We want to make sure that everything's sterilized when you're canning. It's really important that you're working with clean things. And when you put hot food, you want to make sure you put it in a hot jar. If you put it into a cold jar, you're probably going to crack your jars. So if you're doing cold food, you want to put it into cold jars and heat it up that way. So all we're going to do is just ladle this in. We want it, see, you can already tell it's starting to jam up. This is wonderful. So we're going to put this in our little jelly jars and try to get little pieces of fruit in each one. We're going to put it up to 1/4 of an inch. Now I'm going to fill these up and then worry about the last minute ladling. I have a paper towel with some vinegar that I've put on it. I'm put a little bit more vinegar on it. These are very, very sugary, and I'm going to make sure to wipe the rim so there's absolutely nothing that will prevent my seal. Be very careful. These are very hot. I'm just going to put the rings and the lids on. So I'm just going to put these in my canner. And if you can see it back there, I'm just gonna put these in and bring those up to another boil. And those are gonna be in the canner after it's at a rolling boil for 10 minutes. And I was able to find a little container. I'm just gonna throw this right inside of it. Try to get a little bit of jam so I could try it with breakfast. See how much I got. Yep, that'll work perfect. So there's two things I wanted to show you. I just take my leftover pectin and I throw it into like a little snack bag. I've labeled it half of the Certo container just so that I know that this is for a half of a recipe. I'm gonna throw it in the freezer for another canning experience. And then I take anything that's left over, any peaches, pits, skins, whatever, I wrap them up like 3 times in plastic, and I actually put these in the garage, I put them in my trash can outside. So here are my beautiful jams all right out of the canner. I ended up with 4 of the half pints. They look really, really good. You have kind of that beautiful blackberry color, but you still have the flavor of the blackberries and the peaches. And these peaches, like I said, they're just so good. They're the mini pixies and very, very, very delicious. Just thought I'd give you a quick look at my little canning station. Of course, I have to have my coffee stuff set up here while I'm doing all this canning. These are some tomatoes that I picked. I have these amazing little yellow pear tomatoes. I just love them, and I saw there were tons of them out on the vine this morning, so I'm gonna pick those later this afternoon when it gets a little bit cooler, maybe even this evening. And I've got some nectarines and plums. I'm gonna be making a nectarine puff pastry, and the plums I've got for my Asian plum sauce. And then I've got some more of those pixie peach, some bananas that I got on sale. I'm gonna freeze those. And these were just some peaches and dill pickles that I canned yesterday. And I've got some jars and lids and all things canning. So you can definitely tell it's summer. Thanks for joining me today for another canning adventure with all my fruit. I really appreciate it. If you're interested and you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing to my channel. Give my channel, this video, a thumbs up, and any comments that you have would be greatly appreciated. So thanks again and have a great day. Bye-bye.